All right, check 1, 2. Sorry for the wait, everybody. Busy day. My dog just got a little sick. He's had a little upset stomach, so I'm gonna take care of him quick, and hopefully he doesn't puke again while we're doing this. We'll see. If he does, of course, I'm gonna have to jump off. Can you guys hear me okay? Oh, what do we got? 20 views right now. And bloop. There we go. All right. Here we are on week 2, right? With the new year already. What are we doing here? Situated. I still got to take down my Christmas lights because it's hard to let go of Christmas, man. Especially this year when it was so crappy last year. Yeah, it's kind of hard to just let it go. Some positivity, right? Some sort of gleam of joy. All right, what am I doing here? Just making sure everything else is set up on the other end, on the back end. All right. Welcome, welcome. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat. I will see it, and I'll do my best to answer. If anyone's got any lame remarks, it will be kicked off. But yeah, hopefully everyone's cool and has a good time. Man, so this is picking up right where we left off last week. Actually, I remember I quick saved right around here, and then I haven't really touched it since, per the usual. But yeah, let me know how you guys are doing, how you guys and gals are. Yeah, where's everybody from? Is everyone international as usual? We have Italy and Brazil and Germany and London and LA, or we have everybody in the States this time. Like, what are we? Where are we located? Give me a little location chat. Just your country, your city, whichever, if you like. Usually got more people in here, but I think they'll dwindle in. I really was late on posting about this too, so. But I think a lot of people know the schedule, so whatever. It's Sunday here. It's like Monday, I think, in Japan, is it? Yeah. Detroit. All right. It's funny, when people are from Detroit, they say Detroit, but if someone else is from anywhere else in Michigan, they just say Michigan. It's interesting. Just like I think most people would probably say Philly if they were from Philly, but if they're anywhere else in Pennsylvania, they'd probably just say Pennsylvania. It's like, that's where I'm from. Anyway, all right, just eyeballing this, just kind of getting my bearings about where I want to go. I'm trying to remember, why didn't I work on her last time? Or probably just because the head was what we finished last before that, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess we can go back to him for a bit because I haven't really worked on him in a long time. So, what's our topology? All right, that's right. So I'm just going to be, this is like, we're getting down to more refining stuff now at this point. Like, poses are in, cloth is flowing, clouds are billowing, hair is herring, flowing. What do we got here? True Sculpt's looking great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Davis, or Miss Davis, whoever that might be. Was born in Dallas, Texas. Nice. My parents lived there for a while. Yeah, I would like to visit. I've met a lot of cool people from Texas, but I've yet to actually go there. So maybe one of these days I will. Maybe I'll move there. Who knows? Who knows? California's crazy right now, man. It's kind of ridiculous. Our governor was just saying how good the wealthy are doing. and just bragging about that. And I was like, what? And then everyone else is like, we're at work, we need jobs, people can't open the restaurant. It's terrible. So anyway, sorry, don't want to get political. Um, but yeah, Texas is awesome from what I hear, and so I'd like to definitely would like to visit. Just pinching these together here, just kind of bringing that flesh together a little bit more. Actually, I might do sub. Hello, world. I'm just gonna bounce around a bit just as things strike me. Normally, I'm probably a little bit more steadfast on one spot, but I kind of feel like just doing like a global kind of coverage here. How's everybody doing with keeping in shape, huh? I've definitely been, friends joked, they call it the COVID 20. Gaining gaining 20 pounds of unwanted weight during this lockdown. I have been slacking on my workouts for sure, especially after the holidays, man. Oh, you know, we were rebellious and went together with a friend and I got together with their family and pigged out, man. Yeah, they had quite the spread, so it was hard to not overeat, but we kind of said, ah, fuck it. It's just it's okay, dude. The joys of having thin ceilings. My upstairs neighbors often will drop something, and Einstein thinks it's someone knocking at the door, so he'll give us 2 cents. um, yeah, so I've been I injured my leg severely. I don't know if you guys know, if those who are here, if you're new or not, but I back in July I really hurt my I tore a muscle, like soleus, like deep in the center of your calf muscles. It's like right against the fibula, and so it's like inside, you know. Yeah, so that was pretty bad, and that took forever to heal. And it's only now starting to feel normal. I can actually like stand on my tiptoes and like kind of do a jog. So that killed, and I love running, so that just killed my ambitions for getting back in shape quickly. Although, of course, I could have done more weights and whatever in here, but when your leg is like when you're just hobbling, man, it really, until you've either broken a bone or torn a muscle deeply, like you just take for granted like how much you um, don't feel like doing when it hurts to ambulate, you know, when it hurts just to walk around. So yeah, so I'm like just getting back into it now, like the whole New Year resolution, whatever. I don't do resolutions, but yeah, I'm just getting back on the horse. Pulled out the weights and starting to do all the usual stuff, you know, pull-ups and presses and blah blah blah. I'm gonna get a punching bag in here soon because it looks like gyms aren't gonna be normal. Oh god, Ein, it's the neighbors. No, it's okay, dude. Yo, hey, Ein, you want a treat? You gotta be quiet. No, okay, you lost it. No, hey, no, it's the geniuses upstairs. Stop. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, guys. Ugh. Anyway. Yeah, so, how you guys doing? What's up? It seems like today we don't have the usual crowd in here. It's seemingly dead by comparison to other weeks. Um, Babe's quick. It's just trying to get everything back to where it should be. My dog. So, is everybody watching a ZBrush user, or are some of you just checking out the software, curious? You guys, fellow artists, already working? Fellow artists not working? I laugh, but it's not funny actually, because yeah, last year sucked. For a lot of us, I should say. I mean, there's some that really did fine, but work wasn't as easy to come by last year. How old were you when you first opened ZBrush, and how did you find out about it? How old was I? Well, I'm 38 now, so I don't know, how old was I when it was like, what was it, 2012, 2011, 2010? I think I was messing with it like around maybe 2010 or so. Yeah, so I was like 28 or 29. I guess, yeah, it was around there. 27, 28, around there. Yeah. Um, how did I find out about it? It was because I was already so I left medicine to get into the arts, but I was really set in medicine for a long time, for a significant amount of time. And even after I left it, I still, even left studying it at the university, I still worked in it for years after. So I worked 2 years in an ER, and then I did like 7 or 8 years mixed between like in-home nursing care with the elderly. Actually, I did that consistently, and then I switched over to like waitering and just getting your hands dirty, landscaping, just all kinds of other odd jobs. I did more and more waitering, and I got up to like the fine dining, like high-end establishments to try to make the most bang for my buck and time. But yeah, I heard about ZBrush during that time when I was transitioning out of college, because I started double majoring in fine art, with a focus in visual communication and graphic design, and and then of course my anatomy skills really came into play with things like this, with human sculpture, and just understanding how muscles work on creatures and bone and all that. But yeah, so I heard about it because of this magazine that I was picking up a lot, and I was becoming friends with a lot of the artists featured in the magazine, and also through an amazing convention that would happen every year in Pennsylvania, of all places, where I was living, called a Lexicon. So there was this great magazine, this art magazine, that really featured, just these incredible artists. And it filtered in from like Photoshop. So I originally was dabbling in the Photoshop Mac lab while I was doing fine art, in university. And then that led to just researching modern artists after you get your whole education on the classic artists. And you know that led to looking up, going to Barnes and Noble bookstore a lot and picking up magazines there. A lot of them are from the UK actually, and from yeah, mostly UK. I think is where they published, like Imagine FX is the name of the magazine. And so that is where I think I remember vaguely like seeing some artists using ZBrush cleverly at the time, because it was becoming much more of what it is now, but it wasn't necessarily as like the main, I shouldn't say it's still not the only, but I mean the biggest and most sought after and beloved sculpting software for visual effects and 3D printing. But it was in contention with Mudbox. But for whatever reason, I tried out Mudbox, didn't like it, felt too minimalist and just not as comprehensive as ZBrush. And I just enjoyed the interface more. It just felt more naturalistic. So yeah, because of some skilled artists blending of using, like creating, because a lot of times traditional artists, whether they're digital painters or traditional, of course they'll use like real models to look as reference, do their sketches, and then do their paintings over that. And often, or they'll photograph them, of course, and then use those photos, take them all the angles, and use that as a reference for their two-dimensional illustrations. But when they don't have a model, especially like in times like now, it's really convenient for them to be able to understand how to use a 3D package like this to be able to, 3D create their own characters, models, references. If they're like kind of impossible poses or just really hard for them or their significant other or friend to do the pose for them to photograph to reference, this gives you such an accurate, if your models are accurate, it gives you such an accurate representation of what would be in the real world, but lets you, of course, position in any possible, pose you want in any possible scenario. And so I think that's what led a lot of people to start using it from the two-dimensional side, as digital maquettes, basically, things that they could use to, just reference for 2D drawing. So I saw that, and that really kind of, that whet my appetite and made me think, man, this is something I can wrap my brain around. It's not just talking about points and, basic polygons and vertices, which is all that I heard about for the longest time with Maya. So Maya is the traditional, one of the most popular animation modeling and animation packages that they use for film today still. But it's been around for decades. But that was, the standard, of course, back then too. But it was just the interface didn't change that much from then to now. It's still not very aesthetically pleasing at all. But, I've learned to use it because you have to, because it's like something you have to learn to work in the industry. Excuse me. So, yeah. So anyway, long story, sorry. But yeah, magazine, Barnes & Noble, said, hey, I can learn that. And so eventually got a job leaving in-home nursing care. Just a little after that, I was working with inner city kids, doing like a art program, helping them with their homework first, and then like teaching them like basics of like color theory and drawing and all this stuff with like a church in the inner city of Lancaster, where I used to live. I didn't live in the inner city. I worked there, and I lived in the suburbs. But yeah, there during that time, I would hit up a cafe a lot, and because I love coffee, is what I'm drinking now, lattes, I should say, more specifically, and this I was working on a Cintiq like I am now, a portable one with connected to a laptop, my old MacBook, and some woman walked by my table, and then she came back. She stopped and she came back around, and she's overtly was like sticking her head next to me, being like, "Oh my god!" She's like, "That's really good. Who are you?" And it was doing a two-dimensional. I was doing like texturing of a digital painting that I was working on, just a personal project, nothing paid, and just before I would go into to the after school program. So I would always work on things at the cafe for a couple hours and then go to the after school program, do my work there, and then either come back to the cafe or go home, depending on the night. So she noticed my work and just, she said, "That's really good. I work for this company. We do," she's like, "It sounds terrible, but it sounds not very sexy, but it's actually great, at least initially," and she enjoys it. So it's called laminate surface design is what it is. That's the job. But the perks were that there was international travel in the very beginning, so you get to be sent to Europe, and I'd never been to Europe at the time, so that was awesome. You get sent to Europe and you get to travel around a bit. So they fly you into Brussels, Belgium, and then from there you go to a small little town called Genk, if I'm not mistaken. And there I stayed at this awesome hotel called Hotel Carbon. You can look it up. It's pretty awesome. And then after that was Cologne, Germany. And then they said you have a weekend free between the last leg of your trip, which is in Vegas. Whoop-de-doo, I hate Vegas. I've always gone there, but just for trade shows is whenever I'm ever in Vegas. It's just for that. Otherwise, I'm like, no thanks. Just not my scene. It's just I'm not into gambling or cheap, weird show like live shows. Not cheap, but like they're canned, right? It's like the same thing every other day. I don't know. Something about it just feels cheap compared to because Broadway does the same thing every day too. I get it. I know. But anyway, so they were like, you have a weekend free. Where do you want to go? So so I applied for the job, and she gave me her card, and she was like, you should apply, blah blah blah. I was lucky. I beat out like 100 other applicants, got the job, and the job was basically like fluorescent lighting, and you're in a cubicle with a bunch, around other people, and it was just dead, like uninspiring. Like you're working on one giant texture of wood or stone and trying to replicate other natural woods or stones to then create imagery that is printed with really specified, really incredibly, like more fine-tuned than you'd believe, different colors of inks to be rolled in these giant like presses, like huge, to create massive, I mean, like rolls that are probably like 20 feet long, like a spool of just this laminate material, you know. And so you're creating these massive, crazy detailed two-dimensional images, but it's just wood, you know, wood grain or stone. So it's just in different color variants of those same grains and wood textures. And then you move on to the next pair, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is not creative at all for me. It's just, I was so, I wanted to die eventually. So the international travel was great. But eventually I came back, and my boss was just not a very kind guy. And, you know, we didn't really see eye to eye, and I'm sure I was giving off vibes of like, I kind of am done here, and so we parted ways. And I used time and money from that job to pay for the illustration masterclass up in Amherst, Massachusetts college, and that was incredible. Made some amazing lifelong friends there, from some of the world's best artists, um, that went there to train everybody. So they have this like 2 week kind of retreat at the university there at the college. When it's you know, out of semester. And so it was this great summer vacation that I took, and I miss it. I really would love to go back some year. It wasn't cheap, you know, it was like 2 grand or so. So it, you know, it's a decent price for but it's a great course. You know, you're getting a lot for that money, truly. And oh, it froze. Don't crash, please. Don't crash. Oh, okay. It's just the did my drivers just die? All right, I'm gonna have to reset them. Because it's not, yeah, it's not picking up. Okay, so anyway, yeah, that really reinvigorated my interest in the more classic elements of my craft. And so, sorry, I'm restoring my drivers here. 1 second. Um, and so that led me down the path of getting reinterested in ZBrush. Because I knew that with that job, you know, it was all two-dimensional, so there's no sculpting, there's no 3D modeling at all. But I would be dabbling here and there, like a blind person fumbling around, you know, just not figuring out. I was like, you know, in the dark, just sort of futzing my way through the program. But then I decided to get serious about it after that job, and so I used a lot of that cash that I saved and made, and you know, put it into 2 courses online to learn ZBrush. And by the end, are we back online? Why is this not? What is going on? Sorry, guys. I don't know why my drivers are just disconnecting. What the hell? What's going on? Could be because I disconnected this, because this is like another computer that I jack in to use as a Cintiq, and then I use this on the couch when I'm not sitting here at the desktop. And sometimes it futzes with the computer when you disconnect and reconnect without restarting. Story time though. Sorry. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, that's where. So those 2 courses, I took those 2 courses online, and by the end of the second course, I picked it up so fast that the guys who ran the program, the software online, which was one of them who used to work at Pixologic, they hired me. They said, "Hey, Daniel really picked this up quick. We think you could really be a good assistant here and help with moderation of more classes." And so then I got to basically, you know, moderate and be kind of like a TA with all these incredibly, you know, accomplished artists and experts and engineers who you know, worked at Pixologic or worked closely with them. And yeah, and so that's where I just sort of my skill set really grew quickly because of that. Oh my god, this is not working. Let me disconnect this quick. I'm not sure what's going to happen when I disconnect this display. It may just go black for a second on you guys, or it may just show my desktop. I don't know. But let me see what happens here. I'm going to try to fix this quick. All right, are we still good? Let's see. Everything's still good. All right, yeah. So let's see. Okay, now that worked. Sorry, guys. It's always weird when you disconnect these things. Wacom's I've talked to some of the guys at Wacom. I know they're all going to fix this in like the next iteration or whatever. It's just a bug. Anyway, yeah, so sorry, long story, but that's like my ZBrush journey. So then they hired me to help them, to help assist them with the site and do social media for them and whatnot. And of course, I was being paid to work with them, but then also I was learning, from the foot of these masters for the better part of almost a year. And so in that year, it was just like this hyper deep, instruction and wealth of knowledge all for free. And I was actually, I was being paid to work and learn with them. So that was phenomenal. And from that point on, I was determined to just keep being intelligent with moves like that in the industry, and in my own personal growth and knowledge of new software and new techniques was, figure out how to get paid to learn what you want to do. So while you're learning it, like that's the best way, is that you're still working in, parallel with your goals. You align your personal goals with how you're making money, how you're making a living. That's I think that's one of the smartest ways to possibly further your career, your education. And this goes for anything. I mean, it's just not just art. I mean, if you can figure out how to work in the industry that you are chasing, you're getting to be paid well, or at least, something, of course, to be, to be a part of where you want to go, then you're winning. You're gaming the system there a bit. So yeah, and then that just, of course, just accelerated me and helped me network more. And I'd fly out to California a lot more from Pennsylvania until eventually, yeah, I landed where I'm at now. I'm actually still in the same place that I was when I first moved here, and it's been great overall, though thin ceilings. So probably time for me to, I think I'm ready to find a new spot. A little closer to the water too, I think. Anyway, so that's my long story of how I learned ZBrush. Okay, so what do we got here? 3D and other related stuff. Are you using custom brushes? No, I'm not using any custom brushes. Oh, you've been studying 3 years, still learning more and more. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's great, man. No, I mean, it's like that's something I think you'll find is, even like myself and others who are more senior than me, they'll tell you, man, that you could be a high functioning artist and yet there's still a lot you don't know, or um, a lot you can get better at, of course, because it's, being a generalist can also mean that you're, if you're a true 3D generalist, means you know how to model, animate, of course, model and texture goes together, but texturing is a whole other talent too in a lot of ways. But if you know how to model, UV texture, rig, it's another whole thing. The rigging is the skeleton. You create the structure internally that will move your character. You create the skeleton, so you know how to rig, and you know how to animate, which is the motion of everything, of course, and simulate. I mean, those things, man. Like even that's a whole other thing. So you have these different tiers, right? You have people who can model, and you have people who are great at organic, and the people who are great at hard surface. I can do both, but I prefer organic, and I think that's shown a lot in my work. I like more the natural stuff than I'm not big into robots, really. I love cool robots, but it just doesn't, like, that's not my thing. Some people are just incredible at it though, and a lot of their names are known in the industry. Everyone knows Vitali, like his robot designs are like end all be all, and oh, what's his name? Furio stuff is legendary too. Like he's great at what he does. So people know these people, that they're those are the ones who excel in those areas of hard surface. But yeah, I'm more into that area. But yeah, so to be a generalist, it's I'd say it's almost better to be a specialist to some degree. To be a generalist and to become a very well skilled specialist is I think the wisest choice to make most of the time. But there are some people I think who really like. I'm just gonna solo this out. There's some people who really like the diversity, just the mixture of different tasks. And if you're lucky to have a job where your taste is that you want a lot of difference in what you do and a lot of variability in the challenges you have, and you like, not necessarily always doing the same style, or not style, but the same task in general. So you want to do some modeling one day, you want to do animation the next day, or take the whole character down the whole pipeline. From inception, concept art, design to final render that's seen in the movies or a commercial or whatever, then that's great. But most of the time they'll break up those type of tasks to be delegated to experts in each of those fields so that you maximize the quality and also the speed of some production. So yeah, anyway, cool. Rizwamation is an artist. Who else do we got? Virtual hug. Thanks a lot. Sure thing. Rig and animate. Rig and animate. Nice, dude. Yeah. It's those are great skills to have, man. I want, like, intellectually I want to learn rigging, but emotionally I really don't. Just because it seems so I don't know. Yeah, boring. I don't know, not boring. It's just laborious. It's a task that has to be done. Kind of like UVing. Like, I don't think any texture artist likes to UV. I mean, it kind of can be like a puzzle to figure out how to follow certain edge loops or whatever, or hide the seam. But I don't think most people really enjoy UVing. I think most people hate it, and it's just something you have to do. So for me, like rigging, it's intellectually attractive because it's enabling me to do more, right? I get animation. I feel like that'll flow a lot easier for me to really get, skilled with that. But rigging is, it's just one of those things that's that in between step. It's like what you have to do in order to animate. Excuse me. So that's, I think, why rigging is not that attractive to me. But do you enjoy rigging? I don't know. Is that something that you actually really enjoy? And are there things I'm not thinking of? I'm sure there's a lot I'm not thinking of that you find inspiring or stimulating and get mentally, like, really engaging about rigging versus the animation. It feels like rigging's just, I always think of it as just, it's the infrastructure, and then animation's the fun. You know what I mean? It's like you're putting in the work to have the fun, to see the thing come alive, because it's building the skeleton and making sure all the skin weights are right and making sure everything deforms properly and has the right range of motion. And I mean, it's like, I understand it, and I think IK seems to be superior to FK a lot of the times, things like that, whatever. But it's still, I don't know. It just seems laborious. Um, yeah, let me know what you guys think. You've interned at NASA, dude. Just a small flex there. That's awesome. Which area of NASA? Like, were you here at JPL here in LA, California, or were you where did you intern for them? Were you DC? Were you in Texas, in Dallas, or Houston? I mean, or Florida? I mean, there's so many different locations, I guess, where they have buildings. Or was it remote? I mean, were you online? I don't know. Picked up a trial a couple days ago, but doesn't really click for me. It didn't for me either, man. Like, that's the other thing, or lady. It can take time. Believe me. Like, there is a learning curve for sure. Barrier to entry is definitely like a strong learning curve. First, when it comes to sculpting, do you think that it's not for me since I'm a hobbyist and not an artist by profession? Yeah, well, that's interesting. See, then if you want to, that's the thing, I guess. If you're picking it up, and I'm assuming you picked it up because you want to sculpt, right? Or you want to be able to sculpt what you conceive of, versus, if you're not an artist, then typically, if your brain still works well in understanding 3D, then people who are not artists typically tend to lean more toward engineers, right? They tend to lean more toward more technical than the surface. They deal more with the interior. So maybe you'd find Maya more attractive. Maybe that would click for you better. I mean, just the idea of, like, drawing, box modeling, drawing out your polygons and connecting vertices, and does that, the more, mesh, just looking at the mesh of something versus, like, looking at, how you're adding or subtracting materials, is that more compatible for your mind, the way your mind works, or is ZBrush attractive because you just like that, you want to be able to, you understand clay, and that's how your brain works? Because there might be another method too, maybe Medium. That's another really, growing popular app that's virtual reality. So it's a VR sculpting. So it's a lot like ZBrush, not necessarily as high fidelity, because of the, the factors of everything's kind of like quadrupled, because you have to have two, two projections from two different camera angles, and so that just taxes the machine, immeasurably. Not immeasurably, but you know what I mean. So there's a lot less development, and a little less um, resolution in general that you're going to find in medium compared to ZBrush, but they seem to be improving all the time from what I've seen, and I've seen some really great artists do some incredible work in medium too, and that's a bit more tangible, even though you're not wearing a glove with resistance on it yet. You're using controllers, and you're able to move your arms and hands around a lot more and push and pull things. So I don't know, is that something that maybe would attract you more, working in a virtual reality kind of setup rather than you know on a screen with a stylus? Also, are you using a stylus, or are you using a Cintiq, or are you using a mouse? Because if you're using a mouse to try to model in ZBrush to sculpt, that's a really bad idea. That's like someone telling you, like, here, put these boxing gloves on and now try to type your name. Like, it's not going to work. It's going to be horrendously painful. Um, anyway, sorry, a lot of questions I threw at you there. Uh, let's see here. Well, I have to do that in order to bring my characters to life. Yeah. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Yeah, seems like everyone says that. Artist profession. Yeah. Too many artists now, and it's very difficult to compete. Don't you think there's too many artists now, and it's very difficult to compete with others, especially for beginners? Hmm. I would disagree. I mean, it's definitely competitive. Don't get me wrong. Like any. I think there's a lot of competition for sure. I think that's almost like any entertainment career right now, I think would have some amount of competition. I mean, I think about that for actors. But I guess what I would say to encourage anyone who's thinking that, and it's a very fair question, for sure. It is competitive, but I mean, I felt like I was getting into it late in the game. When I started, as far as just where technology was, and also in my age, I just felt like, oh man, when I was younger, I wish that I had learned it even younger still, because I felt like it felt as if there were so many more people who were ahead of me and had figured it out sooner, had gone on board. But it's like I remember, not that his character as a person is great or whatever, but Louis C.K. has some great routines, or had, and I remember one time in an interview, though, he was talking about, because I say this because he was up until a certain point a pretty successful and prolific comedian, and I enjoyed a lot of his stuff. Anyway, he has said in this one interview when he was just starting out on stand up, how he was so worried in one particular time when he was very early on in his career, when he had someone before him on stage who just crushed it. They just did a phenomenal job. The crowd was just dying, crying, laughing. And he just felt so intimidated that he could not live up to that level of comedy. Like, he would not be able to bring these people to that fever pitch of hilarity and enjoyment, even though he felt prior to that moment that his work was good and it was worthwhile. Uh, that really made him feel like, I don't know that I can match that, or that I feel like I'm just going to fail. It's gonna um, just crash and burn in front of everybody. But I forget how. Forgive me for not remembering exactly the sorry, I just got a message from one of my guys from yeah, from Pixologic. Yeah, it looks like Facebook stream isn't connecting. Sorry. But anyway, Louis C.K. said, though, that somebody told him, I think it was some other older comedian told him, like, look, you don't have to think that the humor is just going to be suddenly like sucked out, like the air is sucked out of the room, and now there's no more humor left that you can't capitalize on, or that suddenly, like, because their jokes were told and they were hilarious, that it makes yours obsolete. It's sort of like you know like friendships. Like, I mean, there's a limit, of course, before you have too many friends and you just can't spend enough quality time with them, but it's not like your heart should necessarily grow colder if you have a good experience with other friends. It's not like those good experiences are going to negate other good experiences that may not be as good, but people don't necessarily, if you're having general positive experiences, it's like the variance in qualities, of course, maybe one will trump all the rest, and that's someone like you're going to date or whatever, but in general, if it's just friendships, it's like you're gonna have good times with many people, and it's like those good times with one friend is not going to detract from your others. So that being said, the analogy, the parallel is that yeah, there's a lot of artists in the world, there's a lot of competition, but that doesn't silence or lower the quality of what your voice can bring to the table. Um, there's been so many artists forever, and yet people don't get tired of art, right? That's just, we need it more now than ever, I think. We need intelligent, meaningful entertainment always. And if you can bring something unique to the table, if you have a deep love and a passion for what you want to do, um, and you can do it with excellence and maturity, and humor, or any positive things, of course. Um, yeah, I think that will definitely be attractive to people who will hire you, and would want to have you on their staff. So I don't think that there's definitely competition, but I don't think that it's anything that you should give up with. It's not something that should discourage you from pursuing what you want to do. I think that's but I think that's a very common feeling too. So don't feel bad. I think it's something that you just need to develop your skill set, find something else that will help you pay the bills or help you sustain yourself while you're learning, because that's what I had to do. Like I said, I did waitering, I did landscaping, I was wiping the bottoms of people, man. I was taking care of elderly dying people, and I was doing a lot of other things that were not just art, to survive, to pay the bills, to live, until I was able to become a full-time artist and function in this capacity. You know, you will develop a community if you're friendly, if you're positive. Yeah, this is the other thing I always tell younger artists too. Sorry, I'm not sculpting while I'm talking. Um, I'll just say this one last thing in that topic, and then I'll catch up on the chat. There's basically like I think there's basically three primary rules that you need to follow if you want to enter this industry. Like many, I would say, not just digital sculpting or just digital art or you know film or anything, not just entertainment, but I think this goes for a lot of industries. First and foremost, of course, you have to be exceptional at what you do. You have to be excellent at whatever your job is. Like that's duh. That's like the barrier to entry is be exceptional, right? Be excellent. Don't look at your peers, don't look at your friends who are around your age or around your life experience, because they're not going to know much more than you, and they're not going to be able to contribute much more to to your journey, or help you or advise you too much more than what you could tell yourself. Of course, it's good to have other pair of eyes to critique and whatever, but um, know that your competition is people like myself, and people who are more senior than me, and people who are more accomplished than I am. People who are in the industry already working. That's your competition. So, meaning you should, and it's not, again, not that you guys would ever be competing necessarily for the same job. It happens, but it's rare. It's more so that you have to look at those who are already working as your competition, as the quality level, the bar that you need to at least match, if not exceed. And it's easily possible. There's a lot of artists who are just content to just create the assets, the characters, whatever, for the companies that hired you to do that, and they're fine with that. I really want to go beyond that. I don't really enjoy just being told what to do and then doing it, even if you have a lot of freedom or wiggle room. I mean, to a degree, I enjoy that. Depends what it is, of course. If it's an idea or brand or character that I really enjoy or really like. But often, you've got to take what comes down the pike a lot of times, and sometimes it's just a paycheck. It's just something that's fine. It's not like you really are passionate about it. It's not like you hate it. It's blasé. It's okay. I'll be your good art monkey and just do what you need to do, and there you go. Just pump it out. All right, go through the motions. That happens. But that's not always the case, and it depends where you're at. Everyone's different. But anyway, sorry. First point is be excellent at what you do. Second point, be good with people, right? So this is the other thing. A lot of artists are, a lot of young artists especially, but artists in general, known to be quirky, weird, socially awkward, um, unable to hold a conversation, unable to look someone in the eye, giving like limp dead fish handshakes. Like, dude, don't make all those mistakes. Like, get some confidence, be assertive, be friendly, be positive, smile, look people in the eye, give a firm handshake, but not overly hard either. Don't overcompensate. Just be you. But unless you is extremely awkward, then try to sort of find a nice middle ground of normality and friendliness and just, that sounds horrible. Because it's like everyone should be themselves. But yeah, I mean, it's like there's a what's the word? There's the Overton window, right? There's a certain realm of like acceptability before you get outside of that, and then it's just like, does not compute. So like, yeah, be friendly, be enjoyable, be personable, have those soft skills developed, right? If you haven't, even if it's just working online with someone else, you're still gonna have to Zoom call. You're still gonna have to have conversations, and it's not that much different than. I mean, there's definitely a difference, but it's still there's still a translation that's very easily conveyed through video and through cadence of voice and body gestures and whatnot. And if you're not exuding positive things, you're not going to score any extra points, which means you're not going to be helping secure the next gig or endearing yourself and your personality and or your proclivities and style onto the hearts and minds of the people who will be cutting your check, right? Who will be saying or recommending you for a job, right? You're not going to be scoring any points there. So, you want to be doing that, but you want to be doing it genuinely because people can really see through BS. I mean, it's the thing that I think a lot of young people may not pick up on because they're not as experienced in life is if you're trying to act, unless you're an exceptional actor, if you're trying to force yourself to be unnatural and be someone you're not, people will intuitively, subconsciously pick up on that and they will reject that. They won't like that. It'll just leave a bad taste in their mouth. And it may not even be like a strong, like, oh, I don't like that person, I detest that. It's just, meh, indifference sometimes, or maybe they'll find you a little annoying, or whatever. So point is, be likable. Try hard to be the best positive version of yourself that you can be when you are putting your face forward, when you're showing your portfolio, when you're asking for a critique, when you're asking for a portfolio review, or applying for a job, writing a cover letter, however that looks. I've almost never had to write a cover letter for any of the gigs I've worked on, for all the different shows and movies and projects. I've almost never had to write a cover letter. It's usually just maybe like hand us your resume, but even then, a lot of times, even that's less. It's like the least amount would be cover letters, lesser than that would be resumes. I mean, it's common. It's like, whatever, it's like paperwork, but it's, you just have a decent resume, of course, at least well composed and succinct. Then the most common thing that people want to see is your portfolio, right? And so that kind of brings me to the third point of the top three. So first is be excellent. Second is be likable and be good with people. And the third, of course, is aside from good social skills, be lucky. And that sounds ridiculous, I know, but I mean, you have to make your own luck, right? That's how the phrase goes. It's like luck favors the prepared, right? So if you want to have a lucky chance at getting a job, at meeting somebody, shaking the right hands, whatever, position yourself, to be in that opportune moment, right? What does that mean? So you can't make things necessarily happen, but you can position yourself for the possibility, the likelihood of them happening as best you can. And that's increasing your odds of scoring the gig, of whatever you're chasing. So you can optimize your chances of, obtaining what you want or what you want to do. And that comes with, of course, the first point, sort of circles back. The first point is like, be excellent in what you do. So have an amazing portfolio, cull it so that it's just your best pieces. Less is a lot more usually. You don't need like 20 or 30 pieces because people don't want to be like just sitting there watching you like flip through your iPad, showing them like 30 different pictures of, mediocre pieces or things that look too similar to the other piece. And when you're just starting out, you need to have like the maximum bang for your buck. So your first 3, 4, or 5 pieces that you show them need to all be like home runs, just knocking out of the park, just phenomenal, beautiful, moving, gripping, exciting, funny, but like there's got to be some high octane. There's got to be some punch to what you're showing them. It can't just be a sketch, unless your sketch is like Da Vinci, unless your sketches are amazing. And you're going for a concept art position or something. But generally, you need your pieces to be developed, finished, look good, not look like this is a work in progress. Unless a work in progress is amazing and it's something that people love and you think they'll love it, don't show like works in progress. Show finished work. I mean, if it's one thing if it's your blog, it's your Instagram, and you're showing a process through it, or you're making a video of how to make something. That's totally different. That's fine. I mean, people do like to see works in progress, just not if you're trying to do an elevator pitch. If you've met an art director or someone connects you with a creative director and they're like, oh, let me see your work. Show them just the few best pieces that you have that are relevant to what they're looking for, and that will really just sing your praises. That really shows your breadth and experience, capabilities, all of that. So that's being prepared, I guess. That's making yourself lucky. Is being ready for that opportunity. Because then the other part of that being lucky, of course, is if the opportunity presents itself and someone says, "Hey, I'd love to see your work," and you send it to them, that has to be envelope packaged, right? That has to be inside of your personality, delivered by you in some form or another. And so that has to have some sort of signature of who this person is, and conveys some sort of personality that's positive, that's confident, that's fun, that's intelligent, hopefully. So all these things, so the first 2 points compound into making the third one a reality, I guess. So anyway, that's my long spiel on anyone who is thinking about getting into the industry, or almost any industry, really. I think in general. I mean, of course, you don't need a portfolio in most industries, but personality and skill sets, excellence. Those are huge. Like those are just big things for life. Period. Right? For success in life. Be great with people and be excellent at what you want to do. And and then usually the right people will, if you're working hard and you're showing yourself, you're showing up, putting the pound of the pavement, you're putting the hours in, and you're being smart about it, because you can't just work too hard and not work smart. You got to do both. You will find success. You will find doors that open, and you be a likable person, and you be confident, and you do the work. You could have two artists who are producing nearly the exact same work, but if someone's just more likable, they're probably going to be, most likely, they're going to be the one to win if the choice is up to the, if the person choosing actually has that choice, versus if there's some higher up that's saying, no, you hire this person for a diversity quota or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway, that's my long spiel on your question. So anyway, sorry. I know I've missed a bunch of the chat here. Let me go through it quick. Sorry. So someone was saying playing around with ZBrush Core first, friendlier interface to begin with. Maybe play around with it. Yeah, I mean, I've heard mixed things on ZBrush Core. It's weird for me because it's like, as someone who's an experienced ZBrush user, jumping. I think it was like the last ZBrush summit. I was there, and I think I dabbled with ZBrush Core, and it kind of felt like the boxing glove thing. Like, type your name with these boxing gloves on. It just felt restrictive, and it was because I'm used to my UI, the way everything's set up, because you can customize your UI in ZBrush. I've customized mine for what I do mostly. All my most common brushes over here, and all my common operations down here, and things that just make sense. That's just very clear, logical, fast, expediting it, so I don't have to go through every other menu and go through certain operations to find something. I just put all the things I know I'm going to hunt down right at my fingertips, so that it's clean and straight to the point. So ZBrush Core can be really, it's very restricted, right? It's very reduced. They've just stripped away a lot of the confusing elements, or elements that or maybe aren't just the foundational parts to it. But then it just creates a whole confusion for those of us who are happy in our complexity at this point. But yeah, maybe try ZBrush Core if you're new to the whole thing. That might be an easier way to ramp up. I'm not really sure, because that was invented and shared much later after I learned ZBrush. Sorry, I'll get that out of the way. Huntsville, Alabama, the graphic design department. Nice. Okay, you're in Alabama for NASA. Okay, awesome. How was Huntsville? How was Alabama? I'm curious. I've never been to Alabama. Too many artists. Nah, yeah. Use Blender CAD. My job. So yeah, maybe true then. I use Lightwave 3D to build my 3D models. Nice. Lightwave is still around. It's amazing. Lightwave's old, but it's sticking around. I mean, I guess they're still updating it, right? Because I know a lot of, like, there's an artist I was working with at the startup I was at for all of 2019 and into 2020, and he was using Lightwave like to design all of these like robots and ships and like complex fuselages, and it was like first sci-fi project. Excuse me, like sci-fi cute like kid show or whatever. But highly detailed, kind of like Cowboy Bebop level, like really detailed, you know, lots of little greebles and nurnies and screws and bits and bobs and all kinds of stuff. Like it seemed very well suited for, you know, very like box modeling CAD kind of work. More than artistry, but I don't know. I know people who are great artists who use it too. So I don't know. It's great, I guess. It's an option. You use a mouse. Okay, yeah. So if anyone's using a, okay, well, I forget if Riz wasn't the one asking about learning ZBrush though, right? Riz Swimation. But yeah, for those who use a mouse, don't use a mouse with ZBrush. A mouse will just screw you up. You need to use a Cintiq or a Wacom Intuos. So you gotta have like a stylus and a pressure sensitive surface to get everything out of ZBrush. Use the cheapest tablet, still works, even though pencil broke. Difficult stuff back in yeah, sorry about that, dude. Yeah, Latin America can be, it depends where you're in Latin America, but yeah, it can be hard and expensive, I think, to have stuff shipped there sometimes, depending on your country. Draw Fred Flintstone. Great way of putting it. Sorry, thank you. I'm sorry I'm so back on all this. I'm behind on all this. Any advice for Andy advice? Any advice for sculpture for 3D prints? New on both things, ZBrush and 3D prints. If you have any tips, would be great. Thank you. Yeah, sure. I mean, this is sort of one of the tips basically that I'm showing you right now, slowly, is simply that there's no real secret other than just sculpting what you want initially. In my opinion, I mean, you can create things to 3D print that are going to be multiple parts as separate parts, or you can just say, I like kind of taking the Steve Jobs approach, which is, I have this vision, I just make it work, make it possible, just make it work. So I always think of that first. I think, don't think about restrictions, don't think about build volume space much. Just think about ultimately, like, yeah, I want this piece to be about 2 feet tall, right? 24 inches. I want it to be big. I want it to be impressive and attractive, right? That's it. Well done. That's all I think about, and I know I'm going to 3D print it, just period. There's no like debating about engineering it or whatever. In the beginning, it's just create something masterful and beautiful, and then reverse engineer how to make it work in the printers, right? Because that's always, pretty much, that's almost always possible, unless you're trying to create really like those mind puzzles where you have something inside, printed inside of something else from the very beginning, so there's no way you could have physically connected them or inserted them into each other later because it's printing around the other internal object. Those are cool, but I almost feel like there's just gimmicks, right? They're just showing off the tech and how the tech works, but it doesn't really usually have real world applications generally, unless you're trying to create a sphere that has a sphere inside of a sphere, and they're all skeletonized like meshes that, you know, you've seen those things, I'm sure, but like there's balls that turn inside of spheres and students, and that's cool. But you know, unless your character's holding one of those, and then you got to print that way, and then that might create some thought that you have to put into it, like just simply doing that as a separate object and then printing it separately, which is still not that big of a deal. But otherwise, there's not too many secrets, I don't think, to really creating something. There's a lot of standardized procedures that you have to do in order to have something ready to be 3D printed, and it's just like a checklist of making sure, is it watertight. You know, you make sure you don't have any like floating vertices or weird little polygons that might have been like, you know, clipped off and just sort of, you know, just floating around somewhere. You know, simple things like that. Like there's very, you know, nothing really so incredibly complex or secretive really. Other than just, you know, sealing things up, having it be watertight, and then either hollowing it out if you're going to do it on a SLA printer most of the time, unless they ask for a solid piece. Definitely hollow it out. Using Mesh Mixer, which I can show you guys. You can do it in ZBrush too, but Mesh Mixer seems to be pretty exact. And although I think, is it thick skin? I think that you do internal thick skin now. I think you can hollow out and then just use live Boolean to create drainage holes. So, you know, you hollow something out. You don't want it ever to be, simple rule for 3D printing, you don't want anything that's hollowed out to be just hollow, but there's no opening to the internal space. You in fact always want to, if you can, know how you're going to orient it in the 3D print if you're doing SLA. If it's FDM, just a glorified hot glue gun on a gantry kind of printing, you don't need to hollow it out. It automatically does that in the software that preps it for that kind of printing. it'll create an internal infrastructure like a, you know, hexagonal or octagonal or whatever kind of shape you want internally as internal supports to hold the structure inside, from the inside. But with SLA, which is what this is going to be printed in, like with this is like a alien skull. I can enlarge this for you quick so you can get a better look. So this is like a an alien skull that I printed a while ago, and this had to be hollowed out because this would be a thick chunk of resin otherwise and a waste of material and time. So it's hollowed, but then the internal cavity of the skull, while I can't show you here because it's one piece, you can see there's holes back there, and they work in part of the design. So internally, I connected the cavity of the dome of the skull into, you know, holes that lead out there, and the one that's right here where it's the base of the skull, where you'd have, you know, your organs, you know, your spinal column or whatever, you know, go through. So you can use, if you have the ability to, you can use natural, you know, holes of your characters, whether it's, you know, at the butt or the mouth or the nose or whatever. If you're, you know, doing characters, you can use those holes as opportunities to cleverly hide, you know, how you're you know, placing your oh, I can show you this too, placing your drainage holes for your pieces. So here's a Raptor that I'm really well known for. And a lot of people have bought these from me, and a lot of guys from ILM have these as commissions, and you know, piece that I'm proud of. This is all like down to the wrinkle. It's exact, you know, to the original Jurassic Park Raptors. I think this is a updated one or a modified one from an older version. So like the eye socket there looks a little too deep, whatever. Yeah, nerdy stuff that I would really know, but most other people don't care. So this is an example of just how you want to section some things. Like, so this takes a little bit more work in like following the wrinkles and the folds of the skin and the way things would go here to like section this off to have this, you know, pin system. But there in the center, you see that circle. This is a drainage hole that I used, you know, to make sure this piece is hollow. But then I left the feet, since they're so thin here anyway, and I want it to stand on its own, I left them solid, so that leads, you know, extra weight to the body so that it stands up on its own. And then this line, I didn't fill them in specifically just to show you guys like how things work, you know, when you're designing. But here again, kind of a snap pin system, and then the other you know, part that's mostly solid, again, just to kind of balance out weight. But you know, it's a little bit of engineering that you always have to think about when you have a multi-part, multiple piece assembly kind of thing, you know. So anyway, yeah, so you know, drainage holes, that kind of stuff, sort of important for you know, how you structure your pieces. Get my fat face out of your face here. Yeah. So those are general things, I think, you know, knowing how to hide your drainage holes, and just being aware. Oh, and when you're placing your drainage holes, you want to make sure that you're orienting them so that you at least have two. You need at least two, so you have like flow through. You can get away with one, but it's much more advisable to have two. The first one, the primary one, should be when you're orienting your piece, at the very top or bottom, because you're working inverted, right? So when you're printing an SLA, your parts will be, the build plate lowers into the vat of resin, the photopolymer resin. The laser is below that. It cures the first layer, right? Then this pulls up. It maybe wipes, or you know, it just has the gantry that, or not really gantry, the galvanometer that's on a rail moves back and forth, and then, you know, it'll do the next layer, and so on and so on. So it'll pull it up out of the liquid. So liquid creates, you know, pressure, bubbles. You don't want to have a sealed up, completely hollow object with no drainage holes, because then you'll create pressure. Air pressure will create an explosion a lot of times, and you'll have your piece eventually just pop, and you'll just hear a big bang, and then you know, resin will be everywhere, and bits and parts of your print will be all inside of the printer, and it's just hell. So you need drainage holes for the top, so when it first enters, as soon as it's creating your first layer, there's a hole somewhere. Hopefully your piece is angled that way so that the hole is pointing up so the air can go out. And then your next drainage hole would be somewhere either in the middle or at the bottom. And if you want to add more, like in between, if there's an opportunity to, great, right? So I don't know. Those are my general tips for 3D printing in SLA. Other than that, sculpting, like I said, it's sculpt what you want and then just figure it out, you know, down the line. What else do we got going on here? What is this anyway? An angel, Cupid? Yeah, it's Cupid. This is Cupid and Psyche. So if you go to my site, you can see the original piece. It's a story of Cupid rescuing Psyche from Hades. So mythology goes that Venus, the mother of Cupid, was jealous of his love for Psyche. I'm butchering the story, but you know, and so she lied to Psyche and told Psyche that if you wanted Cupid to fall in love with you, there's this potion that is in a vessel that's in Hades, and so Psyche descends into Hades, hell, to retrieve it, and she finds it, but she opens it out of curiosity, and then there's this, you know, potion that the smell of it alone or whatever put her to sleep. So she fell asleep there, and it would basically going to be eternal coma. She would just stay there and die. And Cupid finds out somehow of his mother's deception, asks where Psyche is, and eventually he demands it. Eventually she tells him somehow for some reason, and so then he goes down to hell to save her. And the only way she can be awakened is through a kiss. And so that's sort of where I think the whole original Sleeping Beauty mythology came from, is from this original story. And so yeah, so his kiss is what awakens her. And this was this famous piece that's in the Louvre, which I can show you guys. And so I did a remake of that, and this is the sequel, you could say, to that piece. So it's sort of a unique, odd thing, I guess, to do that I don't see a lot of people do many sequels or sequences of sculptures of the same characters. You usually have just different poses of the same character or whatever, but don't often see multiple sculptures that kind of tell you a story from, you know, point A to point B and so on. So for those curious, this is it's my original piece. It's a close-up. This is right after the kiss, and so I had him looking up. And the original piece, I can show you too. Cupid Psyche Statue. So this is the original in the Louvre. This one. And it's beautiful. I love it. I fell in love with the sculpture when I first saw it, like decades ago, like a decade and a half ago or so. Just incredible. Just, I mean, the cloth and the soft texture of the skin and the form and just the poetry of the motion. And it's elegant. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's in marble. Like, that's the crazy thing when you think about it. It's like in marble. It's in stone. It's no forgiving it. So I loved it. So it was incredible. But I wanted to kind of make my version of it because I always felt too that it's very, I kind of, I don't know, I kind of get tired of seeing the same kind of generic, very like androgynous, like young child face on these characters, especially when they're doing very adult things. And this should be, you know, I feel like they both look effeminate. And I thought, like, well, Cupid, you know, I wanted to update it. I kind of wanted to make it like the 300 version of this story. So I figured Cupid should look masculine. Cupid should look like a Greek god, as a Greek god should, not as like a little cherubim with a harp kind of thing. I wanted it to look like a man and a strong one at that. And so the wings had to match, of course, so that, you know, one idea dictated all the rest quickly in design. So masculine features, larger wings, because bigger mass, blah, 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 just have it make some sort of sense. Yeah, and so here, instead of just groping her, I figured it might make more sense if they're in hell, that he would be more protective rather than like, hey, let's just get it on. So instead of his arm just grabbing her breasts, I rather had, and he's an archer, so he has his quiver right here. You can see that, but where's his bow? So I figured, why not make the bow kind of like this cool, a bow, but also kind of like a weapon in some way that's more than just a bow, but put some cool blades on the end of it, and you know, gave it like a little lantern reservoir for oil, so you could actually shoot like flaming arrows if you wanted. Like, just some cool, like, just little tweaks to the mythology, just to kind of make it something that would work as like a film, as a movie today almost. So just having fun, just developing the idea in some cool ways that I thought that were attractive and fun. So here you can see the bow with these kind of recurved blades on both ends, and here's a little reservoir for the oil, and this is where I was thinking of putting an LED there, and maybe I'll do it on this one. So run a little wire through here to a battery and have a little like flickering flame LED just at the tip of the end here, so it kind of makes more sense visually of what that design is and what it's for. He still has his quiver back there, and then here's kind of the full piece. I have it in my on my mantle in my living room. I guess I should have brought it over here, but I guess I could do it next stream. But yeah, I just it just sort of just took her pose and made it just a little bit more contrapostal and a little bit more sexy. Just the leg. It's just simple things. It was just adjusting the legs, making them a little longer. So amplifying both of their genders and making them just a bit more rich and powerful and striking. That was the goal. And he's kind of glancing up from the kiss, so this is kind of a moment captured right after it. I didn't want it just to be like them gazing at each other all happy, as if they're not in heaven in the story, they're in hell. So there should be one where she's just kind of coming to, really, and he's already looking up at what's the danger, assessing what's around them before they get the fuck out of there. So, so that was my whole, that's what you want to do, I think, with any great art, is you want to tell a story, even if you're not, you know, I'm explaining this to you, but I think you can still get that energy and you can get the gist if you're looking at the statue in real life. If you're looking at it, you see the intent in the eyes, you see the posture, you get it. And I think that, I think that's important and that's fun. And it's just something we don't see all the time. So yeah, I think a lot of times we see in 3D art, you'll see a lot of art that's just really static, really dead in the eyes, dead in the expressions, and just kind of either like T-pose or just like a blank, like just kind of bland, like just a simple boring expression or pose. And I want something dynamic and exciting, so I kind of took what that was already and just really glorified it, amplified it, turned it up to 11 if I could. These are just some quick renders, just putting the camera in different unique positions. So anyway, so that's what I'm working on. It's a sequel to this piece, I guess you could say. Yeah, so that's what this is Takeoff. Let's see what other questions. Keep in mind, you don't need a job in the industry to be paid using ZBrush. There's infinite businesses that can be created from this program. This is true. Good point. Zarius Davis. This is absolutely a good point. Sorry, I keep giving that away. Sorry, just catching up on chat. Who gives a crap about hand strength? Gives a crap about the handshake strength? People do. You'll find the fact that you're laughing at it shows that you you haven't noticed that. People care. People care for sure. It tells something about a person. And it's if you've ever shaken a limp fish handshake, ugh, like it's repulsive. It's not enjoyable. It's not like, oh, those moments they mount up. It's like it tells something about someone's personality. Just like body language does. That's a handshake is body language, like direct contact to body language. Thanks for the advice. You're welcome. It's like how you walk, how you talk, everything like that matters. That affects people's perception of you to some degree. Of course, they shouldn't judge your whole character and being upon one thing, of course, duh. But your cumulative presence and level of communication affects people's perception of you, and for positive or negative. And of course, the other question is assuming you care, right? It's just assuming that you want someone to like you enough to hire you to pay you money to do something for them. Sometimes it doesn't matter. You're right. Sometimes you'll never handshake. But anyway. Give it A. Weak handshakes are the worst. Instantly, it has a bad standing with the upper guys. Yep, there you go. Hate handshakes. Never know if I'm doing too much or too little. Well, practice. Have a friend shake some hands with you. Like try, practice. Why not? But yeah, it can be awkward sometimes for sure. Life is awkward. I want to make shape of my body like this. Don't we all? Always do too much. Don't give up. Yep. Have I ever animated? Not really. I mean, not like full body characters. I've actually done a bunch of motion capture for other projects, and for my own project, my short film I'm working on, I actually mocapped the entire main character myself in a suit, and so I'm gonna be learning animation. I'm learning rigging actually like this year. More so, I should say, like between the next 2 months, I'll be locking in my knowledge of rigging enough to rig a character and then bring him into Unreal, so that the mocap can be bound to that and go forward from there. So yeah, animation's definitely on the table. Important advice for all of us. Thanks. You're welcome. Hopefully people enjoyed it. Usaris, what is the difference between using fiber mesh or hair cards in ZBrush versus making hair in XGen in Maya or Natrix? Big question. I'll come back to that in a minute. Let me just finish the other things. Amazing work. Thank you, sir or ma'am. Appreciate it. Use Lightwave in 2018. Nice. Butt drainage. It's like a problem. Neat. Nice. I will laugh at 12-year-old humor. I'm sorry. It gets me. Did you make Rex from Toy Story? No. I have not made Rex from Toy Story. I lean more toward the photoreal than the stylized. I can do stylized, but yeah, I mean you saw the realistic dino I have here. Or behind me is the Trico statue that I did from The Last Guardian. I still have to make copies of it and give it to the guys from the game. But here's a wing from that statue that's behind my right shoulder. I guess I can enlarge this again so you guys can. Let me expand this. I have other controls for this camera. Zoom out here a little bit so that the focal length isn't so cropped in. And then I can enlarge this a second. All right. So here's a wing that you can get. So the fidelity on this thing is insane. I've shown this in the last stream, but for those of you who weren't here, you know, if it'll focus, I think it's a little hard there. There we go. Got some sunlight on it even. One of the feathers snapped off because this was at a trade show, and I just haven't printed more. But the level of detail you can get out of these printers is nuts. So to do something like Rex from Toy Story is easy. It's just I'm just like not a huge like, you know, Toy Story is fine. It's fun. It's cute. Whatever. That's not my style, so I don't really seek to replicate those pieces. But anyway, you can even get the. It's hard to see on the camera, but if you can hear this, I don't know if you can hear the scratching, kind of like the. There we go. Ridges. You can get the ridges on the feathers. I mean, it's like, I'm not sure it'll focus or not, but anyway, crazy detail. Like you can get astonishingly like micro detail that you'd have to use like a magnifying glass or something to actually see. So it's pretty nuts. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Did you break the symmetry for this piece since the start? Did you start symmetry from the bit? No, yeah, I broke the symmetry almost from the beginning. I did some of the detail work, a little bit of it, before I did the poses. But with her, I started from where she was, and it was totally asymmetrical, and just moved it from there. With him, I believe I started with asymmetrical. I started from scratch, sort of, with him, except for the head and the bow and the wings. Oh, and the left arm. So I kind of chopped those off of the other parts, the other original piece, and then brought it into this one. Nice, great stream. Thank you. Dropped his bow so he could cop a feel. Yep, that's probably what happened in the original piece. Are you sure her neck looks all right? Yeah, I know I need to fix it. She's not done. Like none of them are done at all. Yeah. Are you sure her neck looks all right? Yeah, it's not perfect yet. And hello. Okay, so you're asking about differences between using fiber mesh or hair cards. So what exactly do you want to know? I mean, you want to know just what the differences are? Do you want to know, like, you know, is fiber mesh compatible outside of ZBrush? Which I'll tell you now, it's not. Not directly. You can export out curves from your fiber mesh that you've groomed in ZBrush, and then you can bring those curves into Maya. You know, to use in XGen, or I believe you could use them in Ornatrix too, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't done that yet, actually. I need to start learning that actually too. But I do. I've done fiber mesh like a bunch of times, many times. Pardon me, sorry. What is the difference between them in terms of exporting them to a render engine? Okay, yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, I think fiber mesh will look. If you turn it to real geometry, it will look correct in Keyshot, meaning you will have to make them like at least 3 sides have 3 to 3. Okay, so this is something. So we're coming up on that last half hour. So sorry again, we haven't done too much sculpting, but we've been all having a nice talk, I guess. So I'll do. Let me do this for you here. I'll do an example. I always find it's better. I can tell you all this, but it's like it's so abstract when I'm not showing you. So I was like, I might as well just show you. Right? Okay. Does not break that pretty. What? Does it not break that pretty small print? The feathers. Oh, no, you're right. It doesn't. The Form 3, it has this really gentle, unique way of printing now. It has this really soft, clear layer of plastic instead of a hard, like almost like glass. Or I did have glass, I think. Instead of having a glass or hard plastic layer as the bottom of the vat, it has a flexible, clear layer. So it can it'll hold the liquid, of course, but then the galvanometer and the whole assembly that has, that's what I was looking for, the laser assembly, which houses the laser and the galvanometer and everything else, that moves underneath it positions itself. Instead of just having the laser fixed and the galvanometer moving the lasers, drawing the line, this whole chamber with everything in it moves across the underlying surface of the vat in the Form 3 printer. So it allows for an extremely gentle kind of wiping instead of having the rigid, hard plastic wiper as the only way of clearing out and making sure that the vat is clear of any possible like stuck, burned debris from the print, which is the Form 2. The Form 3 has this unique method where it moves the whole chamber and it presses and lifts up and down as it moves the underlying soft layer of the vat. So that does that, both the wiping and the movement where it needs to print. So it prints more directly too, rather than having to, because once you have a galvanometer, you're like, think of, hard line of sight. Your laser light's hitting your mirror, and then as it turns, it's moving it. You're eventually reaching a point where your angle's getting steeper and steeper, right, and farther away from a more direct one-to-one clear line of delineation and art, drawing. So when you have the whole chamber move, you're actually able then to have that line be perfectly straight or minimally moving from either angle, rather than going to hard, steep angles like this to like, bounce the laser and get over there in that far corner. You can maximize more clean, direct usage of the vat of their resin tank. So it's a brilliant design, and it's using a parabolic mirror this time, I believe, too. So it's like just the guys over at Formlabs, the ladies and guys. I think it was actually a woman who designed came up with a lot of the parabolic mirror and assembly for the new galvanometer. The ladies and gentlemen over there at Formlabs are just spectacular. I think they're just a lot of brilliant people. I mean, Formlabs, if you don't know, Formlabs is the 3D printing company that I'm an ambassador for. I'm extremely proud to be part of them in some form because I love their machines, and their products are incredibly high quality, used in all sorts of fields now, largely scientific and medical, also largely in entertainment. But I think they get much more of the revenue, and much more of their progress is made through advancements and usage of utilization inside of the medical and scientific industries. Dental is huge for them. But still, those industries demand an extremely high, caliber of precision, so and excellence. So that those machines being used for, artistry, it gives you just that incredible, insane minutia of detail. So anyway, awesome printers. Yeah, so you can get incredible detail from them. So anyway, sorry. So the and if you want to get a printer, by the way, if you want to get a Form 3, if you're on the market, I can get you. I think they increased it back to $500. At least $250, if not $500 off a printer, brand new. So if you want to know, I'll get you that code here before the end of the stream. So in the next 25 minutes or so. Okay, so fiber mesh question. For anyone who wants to know, fiber mesh is the custom proprietary hair, fur, grass, plant-like system that is within ZBrush. And typically when you render it, it'll look great in ZBrush. And you can groom it in ZBrush, but grooming is still could use a little bit of tweaking. I think it's not intuitively quickly the best way of shaping hair, and for a lot of times it kind of gets cumbersome. It can work, but I really think that it's wiser, and it seems to be better to get much better results by exporting your curves out into Maya or whatever, and and using them to you know, guide your, you know, take your rough sketch, if you will, from ZBrush, export and import those curves into Maya and XGen or Natrix, and then use those refined tools to really you know, get that flow of the hair and the fur the way you want it. Okay, so yeah, so okay, let me show you this quick, and let me close this. Not close, but let me shrink my mug down again, and do that. Okay. So okay, so there's a couple things here. Actually, I could show you from Lightbox. If you go into your Lightbox and fibers. So here we already have a ton of presets. I see this and I immediately think COVID. It's terrible. Or this too, kind of. Man, so many of these. They're just balls of fur, balls of fluff. I'm just trying to think what. Yeah. So like here's like a grassy looking thing, like a moss ball. Moss, MOSS. So right now it says blinking in and out, right? Because it hasn't been established as anything. So it's like a preview. So if you come down here and let's see, where is fiber mesh? Never use that thing anymore. I need to. Okay. So we got preview already on. Turn that off, nothing. Turn it back on. There we go. So we want to come over to preview settings, modifiers. So here you got all your modifiers, right? And this is all a whole other, that's a whole other animal. If you really want to get into that, that'd be for another time. We can increase the gravity, and you can see how that, you know, brings everything down. Go back and you get more like what fur and hair would be like in space. It's just like static, just everywhere. So what you want to do if you wanted to bring this into another platform is first of all, you know, if you wanted to go into XGen and or Natrix, you can just export out curves from here. But if you wanted to render this as is for whatever reason, if you were happy with it, see these fibers, if we can get a good view on these, it looks like they don't have, what is their profile? So they have one profile and 8 segments. So segments are the amount of edge loops you have to allow the fiber to curve. More segments means a more elegant curve. Less segments, less vertices, more rigid, right? Until you have like just, you know, whatever, 3 points, 1, 2, 3, an elongated triangle. Increase all of those, subdivide, right? And you add many more points, and suddenly your rigidity goes into, you know, elegant curves and, you know, parabolic arcs and whatever you want. So here we want to add profiles because we have more than enough segments. So I actually reduce these segments because we don't need that many. So I could say we can even go with 5 and increase our profile to at least 3. So now you're going to think of a conical 3, like that stupid monolith that everyone was talking about, right? That was found wherever it was. It was like, if you looked at it top down, it's like a triangle, right? If I'm not mistaken. So think of like a conical triangular tube, 3-sided tube. That's essentially what these are. And I think they come to a, they terminate in one vertex, if I'm not mistaken. Or they might have the 3 vertices at the end of the tube just concave, you know, toward against each other, just come together. Sorry, I'm butchering my proper mathematical descriptions. So we've added more segments, or profiles, sorry, not segments. Actually, it did look good with 8 though. It gives it a little more natural. So yeah, more segments, more curve, more gradation in the curve, and profiles. 3 is fine. I think 4 is better because at least then you're really becoming a proper. It's a cube now. It's a you know, elongated rectangle. But again, it kind of terminates into a more fine point. And if you subdivide that up even more, so we go profiles like 5, and see now you're starting to get more of a, you know, now you have a pentagon, right? And then you're gonna go a hexagon, and you just keep going and going and going. You know, you can just keep adding them. So eventually it's gonna get way too dense though. So, you know, we could do like 4 for now. It's fine. And so from here, so it's been a while since I've done this. But yeah, so right now you're gonna be having to export out physical geometry from this right now. So we're just previewing it. It's not actual geo. That's why I keep blinking away. So let's say we want that. We like that. We say accept. Fast preview rendering for fibers is currently off for a faster interaction speed, while sculpting, this option should be activated. But we're working on a beast PC, so we don't really need to activate it. So when you activate for a preview, no, we want to see the real thing. We want to see it as is, not a preview. So now we were seeing real geometry. And you can see if I turn on wireframe and I turn off the texture, poop, there. Now you can see exactly what I was talking about. We're looking at this one fiber here. You can see how it's basically like, yeah, a long elongated rectangle that's on its diamond shape, right? You've taken a cube and just did it 45 degrees. So there you go. So from here, you would want to export these out as actual geometry, and then but they wouldn't be fibers that you would use in Ornatrix or in XGen. So if you wanted to do that, we would have to come over to where is the settings? Export curves. So right here, you've done this. You've selected. You're on your. See, it creates a new subtool. By the way, sorry. When you hit accept from the preview section, when you go into accepting it, it's now actual geometry. But this geometry also they hold curves. But if you are to edit this geometry in any way other than grooming it, like if you add to it or I don't think if you delete from it, but I think if you add to it or you combine it, merge it with another object, I believe you lose your curves then. So don't do that. So you want to make sure you're on, you're not on your sphere, you're on your fibers. And then you come over here to export curves. And so then here, exporting with curve previs setting will result in 21,374 curves to be exported. Click OK to continue, click cancel to abort, and adjust the previs value. So that's simply just telling you what it's going to do, right? It's going to export that number of curves, and so you say OK. And now it brought up on my other screen, which I can bring over here, the export window. So you just choose wherever you want to export these curves, right? And it's going to export them as an OBJ. And can you do other formats? Yeah, you could do it as a Maya AC file, Lightwave, Modo, and there's Fiber Mesh Guides Raw 32-bit floating point. So that I think will only work with ZBrush. So you could save these out as curves that you could bring in later. But you can also save your ZTL file as is, and it'll still keep all this information just as it is. But yeah, you could export it out as an OBJ, whatever. Just throw it on the desktop. And boom, there, done. So there are your curves. Now you can import those into Ornatrix or XGen and work with them from there. I'm not an expert in those areas at all, so I can't tell you what to do next other than import curves and follow instructions on tutorials on how to work with curves in Maya and Ornatrix and XGen. I'm definitely going to be learning that soon myself, just for my own personal, for my short film for the characters in it. But that's it. I mean, other than that, the hair cards question, the difference is simply that you can grow hair cards in ZBrush, and they're simply that. They're just, you just reduce your, all you would do for that is very simple. You just reduce your, where are the modifiers? Let's go back, turn this off, and mask everything, and then say preview. So now we're doing the same thing again, same, whatever. You can turn this off and just do like a base color of red, and then a high-end color of like blue, whatever. So now again, we're previewing this. Let me reduce this a bit, and so profiles, you want one profile, and you want one segment. So you're creating a plane, right? Hair cards are just a plane. Just a one-dimensional, two-dimensional plane. We want the other things you want to. I'm trying to remember because it's been a long time since I've done this. Your length, you don't want it to be long. We do want you're lowering your max fibers, but then you want your coverage. That's what it is. You want your coverage to be larger, and there's like this inverse or not inverse, but what's the word I'm looking for? There's like a direct correlation between your coverage and your max fibers. There's a relation there, which you increase your max fibers, you're kind of I think coverage will widen your planes a bit, right? So there's like there's a direct correlation there, if I'm not mistaken. And it's also, I think, scaling. Yeah, this is also something to do with scale root. All right, so like if we do this, I think that's the other thing where there's a direct correlation. So if we do both of these 4, okay, because you don't want to scale the tip. You don't want the tip to become smaller. You want it to stay the same width, right? You want it to have the same distance from one vertex to the other on the ends, so they don't come together. And scale root is fine. Coverage. So as we, yeah, here we go. So as you watch these grow, I'm increasing coverage, and you're seeing the cards widen, right? But then if I decrease max fibers, that's simply the numbers, right? So that doesn't increase their width. So max fibers is just population. It's a proliferation of these objects. The other thing, what is the other effect here? Is the length, I believe, right? Yeah, length. There we go. So here we go with length. If I solo this out, that won't do it yet because it's not real geo. So yeah, you can see here though. Where's the other setting I'm looking for? Yeah, we don't need twist. So you want twist to be 0. No variability in that. No revolve. Gravity, actually, we don't need any gravity because you want them to be cards. I mean, actually, you could use gravity still because it would just take the plane and just rotate the plane. It's not going to, there's no extra segments, right? We don't have any extra subdivision there, so it's just a plane. So it's just a square. You're just going to be rotating the square, whether the square's pointing this way or that way, and you can groom it. But those are the cards then that these can be easily created as. They'll be UV'd. They'll all share the same UV tile. So then you can use a fur hair card image and put it onto that UV space, and then it'll be repeated throughout this whole process. And yeah, I mean that's basically where you'd want to go from here. Then is you would just want to export this out. So let's say you like all this, so you say accept. And we got the preview there. That's kind of cool. So yeah, so then you could apply like oh, it needs UV mapping. I thought it came with UVs. What the heck? I thought it. Well, that's weird. That's interesting. I thought it had its own UVs. I wonder why I didn't do that. Maybe it's because I turned off the texture. That might be why. Let me delete this quick. We'll go back. Quickly go back to where we were. Turn on just larger than specified max, reducing texture size or improving memory. Well, reduce texture, auto reduce size. Sure, why not? So we're just putting a random texture. We're putting that. I think that was like an HDR room. It's just an HDR texture, whatever. Maybe that's a bad idea. Actually, maybe just go with the grassy thing. Doesn't really matter, I guess. But here we go. So now we got that there. I think if you have a texture, that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's what will give you your UVs. So now we say accept. Yes. And so now, see, now it's kept it. So now you just have to put whatever, you put any texture there. I think it really doesn't matter. It just make sure that it has UVs and they all share this space. So now I can switch it over to the sky thing, and now you see how it's handling these UVs. You know, how it's handling the texture. So anyway, so there, now you have your cards. It has UVs. They share one UV tile. Pardon me, I got some gas today. So here we can just export this out. You know, you can export these out as cards, and you could export them out as curves as well, I guess. I don't know how this would translate exactly into you know, being used as cards. I guess you could assign each curve a card, this card, right? You could just, you know, because it has a UV space, and just you know, instance it or array it that way. But yeah, so anyway, that's kind of a hack version of, because I'm not an expert. You know, this isn't my field. There are groomers. There are people who just specialize in hair, fur, and vegetation. Like, that's their whole job. That's not my area of expertise. So I will not claim to be the supreme master of this skill set, but it's one that I hope to get better at for sure, and will be learning for my short film, so I can put fur on the creature and hair on the kid, on his head. Yeah, so, and for any future ambitions I'll have later. So anyway, there we go. I think that about covers it. Very helpful. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Usaris. Yeah. So I guess that's about it, guys. I guess we got another 9 minutes or so. So if you guys have, guys and gals, have any other questions, please feel free to ask. Got about 70 some people in here. If anyone watches this later and was hoping to watch from Facebook, I'm sorry. I got a message from my friend and Pixologic guru in Slack about that. Let me just see what he said, because he was saying that Facebook's feed was just not working. Suspect restream IO issue. Kicking out to YouTube and Twitch fine. And yesterday Anna couldn't stream with Twitch, so assuming it's restream. Okay, so yeah. So there's a middleman piece of software between OBS and where you guys are watching the stream, how it's being fed through, and I think they're having some technical issues. So that's why, if anyone wanted to watch this on Facebook and watch this later, I apologize. It was out of my hands, out of Pixologic's hands as well. It's so in between software. So unfortunate for Facebook, though. I don't know that we get a tremendous amount of views through Facebook, so I'm not sure how much of a loss this is for people. But if anyone out there later on who wanted to watch this on Facebook is watching this on Twitch or YouTube, we're sorry. Couldn't help it. What are the questions? Are there any special guidelines on how to slice organic shapes, object for prints, if the object is bigger than the working space that we're printing? So yeah, the build volume. If it's larger than the build volume is what we're asking. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, best practices, general guidelines for organic shapes. Yeah, I can touch on that really quick. I can use the Raptor as an example. Please show me how to make an object hollow, such as a cube or cylinder. Yeah, sure. I mean, I can show you that very quickly too. There's a couple ways to make something hollow. So for organics, so this ties into the question about like slicing up an organic shape. So I just have this Raptor over here that I made that is multiple parts, and this all prints on one build plate in the Form 3. So that's pretty cool, that I can print this whole model with everything, all the little snap pins and everything. So let me increase my window size here again so you guys can see my gorgeous fat face. And it's funny, I see myself as overweight from what I'm usually, so I'm just like, I'm so self-conscious because leg injury and COVID. Anyway, who cares about me and my weight problems? Here is the slicing of the Raptor. Okay, so if the camera wants to focus, yeah, okay. So if you see how this is pieced together, this isn't puttied, and you'll often get a little bit of warpage in your prints. So even if you want to have like perfectly flat areas, you may have some warpage happen from between the printing process to then the alcohol bath and then the UV curing. That heat and temperature changes may cause some slight warpage to happen. So while this was absolutely flush against each other, like one plane against the other plane, no space in between in the computer, you can see that there is definitely a little gap there, which is unfortunate, but that's just a reality of working with plastics and thermoplastics. Well, this is really photopolymer, so it's not exactly a thermoplastic, but it has elements of that when it's curing. Anyhow, you can see the slices I made, though. They follow the wrinkles, right, and the lines of the scales and whatnot on the dyno. So this way, it makes filling in those gaps where you use a little epoxy or sculptor's putty. You want to probably epoxy these, of course, if you were to buy one of these from me. I'd say simply, you take these two parts, put a bunch of epoxy on this end, and the same teeny bit maybe, or activator, which will accelerate the chemical, what's the word I'm looking for? The covalent bonds, I guess, that would form there. And you'd want to put these together, and then you seal it up with just dabbing with even like a Q-tip or a toothpick. You could just like sliver in very gently and precisely your putty, and then just refine it, and then you coat this with like a nice what's the word I'm looking for? Primer, right? To finish it so that it kind of all blends together and you won't even see it. So the same thing on this end. So I would just say follow the natural follow where logical breakpoints are. So another logical breakpoint, if I had to, like previous versions of this, I sliced right across this area, like right through the neck. But I tried to follow the general line of these wrinkles. And so with those older prints, even though there were many more parts, you really couldn't see most of the breaks because they were really flush against each other, and they were also following the wrinkles and the lines of the raptor's folds and skin. So those are logical breakpoints, right? So like at the base of the neck, at the medium of the spine where the hips are, right? Right here at the elbow break, right at the bend of the elbow, I made a slice right there. In previous builds, legs, I think another break I made was right here on the knee, or right following the middle line right there, just right through, right above the calf, right below your the humerus. I mean humerus. I'm thinking of forearms. Femur, excuse me. Um, so anyway, and then the tail, I think I made a line like a cut like diagonal, like right here where you see that long wrinkle that's stretching from the skin here on the back of the thigh. So yeah, those are areas that are logical breakpoints. That's where I would say you could slice your characters, whether they're organic or not. So like organic, I wish I had the Cupid piece here, but it's like with a bunch of decorations on the mantle right now, so I'd rather not drag it over, but I can bring it over next week. But yeah, with other organic shapes, I don't have anything else here that's organic and sliced up. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, I hope that helps, right? I mean, just find breakpoints. So, like, if this model, if I just had to like quickly talk about like where I could possibly make the breaks if I had to, because I want to print this in as few parts as possible, but since the Form 3's build volume is still limited, it's not even a foot, there's going to have to be multiple parts here for this, unless I use the Form 3L, which I'm hoping to get later this year. Should be picking that up. It's much bigger build volume. I mean, you were talking about 13 inches by 11, I think by 13 or so. So a foot, pretty substantial. So like you could fit a human head, a human helmet, could be printed in there. Like a motorcycle helmet. Anyway, so without those large build volumes available to you, you'll have to make concessions and breaks. So here would be, I mean, the clouds would be easy. Of course, I'd make a break like, choose like a line. So like, of course, you want to make breaks logically. So like, what makes sense? So like here would be a good break point. So like at least, and maybe I'd actually do it like this. So where the curves, where it curves inward and the clouds kind of pinch together, that makes sense. You put your seam right there. It helps mitigate obvious breakage, and you can easily fill it in, and still it just makes your life a whole lot easier, right? So look for opportunities in your sculpt where it would make sense to have a seam, and where it would be minimally seen if possible. So for the male, for Cupid, as it automatically zooms in on the female. Okay, so like again, if I had to slice off, like if I had to print her, and I'd probably print her in these arms. One of them would have both of their arms, I think, at this point, because to interlock, you can't. These will have to be sealed together. These will have to be bound together because you won't be able to insert these once it's printed. Though again, so this is kind of like circling back to the beginning of the question that someone else had at the beginning of the stream about tips on printing and what would be possible. And I was talking about the spheres within spheres, the skeletonized balls. You wouldn't be able to put these parts together once they're printed. You'd break the fingers, trying to put them together because they're grasping each other fully. So like these fingers, if you notice, these fingers are actually touching each other there. So that's wrapped completely around her wrist. So these are printed as one piece. They'll be fused together right where the ends of the fingers are making contact with the wrists. So it would if you're doing it well too, you got to go for high detail. You don't want to use Dynamesh and have them kind of look like they're melted into each other, because you have the opportunity to have it look as if they are just two separate beings touching each other and not melted into each other. And that requires you use very high resolution for your Dynamesh, or do Boolean, like live Boolean, which would be great too. And in that sense, then you can ensure that you have just extremely clean welding of vertices, but you won't have an extreme amount of, you won't have any real, smoothing or, like any visual concessions being made where you're not, so that's always look for that whenever you're doing this, if you want your prints to look really clean, really nice, which of course, why wouldn't you? Unless, of course, you know, your prints are blobby for some reason, right? And have a lot of smooth flowing areas, in which case, yeah, then use lower resolution, who cares? So these will be printed together, so I would make a break either, depending on where, you know, the build volume winds up landing. If it would land and cut off somewhere up here, it wouldn't make sense. So, of course, I'd make my break on his arm following the flow of your, you know, flexors and extenders and those muscles around the forearms here. So I'd probably make the break something like that. I'd probably, yeah, I'd follow the flow of the muscles, and so I'd cut it so that the break would happen and elegantly follow the flow of the lines of the muscle delineation. So you'd follow whatever lines of delineation your characters have. So again, crevices, recesses, pinches, clothing folds, necklines. So if you want to do like really high resolution detail heads, like it'd be smart to print only your head at the highest resolution possible, and then the rest of the body at the medium level, because, you know, detail demands. So like all the intricacies of the face and the eyelids and the eyelashes and eyebrows and all of that, the lips, you want all that to really sing and just to be crisp and beautiful. So do that at extremely high quality, and make sure you position the face away from all the supports so that the supports are grown and they're attached to the base of the neck and maybe the back of the head or in the hair, where of course little divots and nicks can be forgiven when you remove the supports. It's much more visually forgiving to attach it there. So very logical, intelligent, simple places of choice, I think, for the head. Similarly, now I think you're getting the flow of this at this point. You know, find these areas of delineation and choose them as your breakpoints. You know, maybe here this would be like a weird place. I don't know. So it can get a little challenging. It's a little bit like a puzzle. You know, either you could bridge this line like that, or you could actually make it a little bit more intricate and actually do something like this, where now you're, you know, we're really kind of just following these the musculature, you know. Oops, what is going on here? Oh, because it's on it's doing paint, right? Is it doing paint? Not I forget why it does that. Did that before. I don't want the curve. What am I doing here? Yeah, mask pen. I remember it was doing like a, yeah, it's doing a paint. Why is it doing a paint? It's like its default style is paint and not regular. Oh man, I remember this happening last time. I'm trying to remember how I figured it out, because it's such a weird, it's choosing such a weird method right now to mask. It's not normal. Maybe stare at this dude's butt. What am I missing? What am I missing? Why is it doing that? Because I didn't switch that unless it was an accident. What's causing that? Shoot, can't remember why I was doing that. The mask painting 2. So upload this updated software. Oh yeah. I think it might be just a bug when they updated it. But I did update this. I think this is the newest version. It's yeah, 2021.5.1. I don't know. I'll have to bug Paul Gabriel about it, I guess. Yeah, it's weird. I forget why. I think it because it triggered, right? I don't think it started out that way. But anyway, I don't know. Sorry guys. Anyway, I would just paint this, probably following lines of delineation, and yeah, and then make that the break, you know. So something like that, you know. Maybe I'd add a little bit more gentle of a line here, because at some point you can't just keep going down, even though you have this extremely weird sliced up part. But you know, you'd have to make some compromises here and there. But in general, yeah, something like this is probably how I do the arm. And then that would be attached to her hand. And so then this piece would lock in. I'd have like an insertion, a male, female end, and just lock them in together that way. And that has, internal support there, because he'll be hollow for sure. I mean, and I might actually keep their arms solid because they're so thin to begin with. So that's the thing also is, having intelligence to know discernment when to keep certain pieces solid and when to hollow them out. Most of the time you want to hollow just because you want to keep cost and time down, right? And inversely increase your speed of production. So that's wise. So with him, definitely hollow as much as can be. Thin walls internally, but arms definitely solid up to this point perhaps, and then the rest from his point on hollow. And her, I would probably keep all of this solid. Maybe inside the head would be hollow, general hollowing, and then body solid, or at least solid, and then like thicker walls here perhaps, but definitely thinking of it like structurally. Think of weight distribution and bearing of weight down on this. Even though it's very small, there's still proportionate, stressors. So anyway, that's where I'd make breakpoints for organic forms. Again, same thing here. Like his arm, of course, we'd make our seam like this, and then either be crazy and bold and do like a whole piece that would have a breakpoint like this, and this would all insert like a puzzle piece, kind of like the Raptor body. It would insert onto this section, and maybe I follow once I detail the obliques here a little bit more. Would have this kind of follow their shape with the trapezius kind of over here, and then do that. So maybe that might be the piece that would sort of piece in here, and have that connected to the arm. Have that connected to this whole arm. And then, of course, I've already broken up but this is like very rough. Obviously, it's not clean at all, but I'll clean that up later. But, this is, I think, a logical breakpoint. I leave his hand fused to that bow's center grip, and then keep these parts as separate. Makes sense. And then, of course, from this area to the whole head, I'll fuse the head to the neck here. I leave the wings as inserts that would have downward pointing. So you're really thinking of doing like this, almost like a J or a really sharp L shape. So they'll be attached to the, they'll be separate, but I mean, they'll be pressing into maybe slightly depressed areas here. Maybe even have little pegs shooting out downward from the wings that you wouldn't see. They'd be hidden because they'd be directly inserting from their point of contact into the clouds to add a little bit more structural force and strength. And then, of course, that would be countered by the way they insert into his back. They'll insert with, as they come up this way, inward and downward facing pegs that would press into his back, and with snap pins, just like I have on the Raptor, so that there's counter resistance, and also so that he wouldn't just, he's being held by one arm here, but we want this to kind of all, press together. So yeah, you probably want, maybe even could do one wing with one peg pointing down, and then a peg coming out of his back actually inserting into the wing. So there's that counterweighting too. That could work too. I'd have to mess around and figure that out. But the wings would be separate, of course. And so then his torso, his head would probably be broken up by I forget the name of these muscles right now, but it's another lower oblique, but it's not an oblique, I guess. But yeah, maybe it's a lower oblique. I don't know. I forget. It's been years since I've memorized all the muscle names. But anyway, I'd probably make another break right here where it makes sense. So you'd have this and go in there, blah blah blah. So that's where I might make a break, and here that where the dark is, it's just showing the line. So then this whole area, this whole lightened area up here would all be with the head, would be one piece. And maybe I would maybe cut this out and just go along the bum and just keep maybe I would actually keep all this together and then make the seam over here, perhaps, right where the a little bit of a wrinkles kind of happening in the skin there, a little bit of pinching, and then have that flow up this way and go along the butt crack, essentially. Yeah, I'd probably make this cut something like that, I guess. Obviously discounting that. So that's probably how I would do that. Yeah, so anyway, I think that shows you, I guess that gives a general idea, right? Like this is kind of overkill, I guess, at this point. But oh, it looks amazing. Thank you. Helpful. Cool. All right. So then the last question, sorry, I'm going to wrap up here in a second because we're a little over time. But I was a little late anyway because my poor dog was puking, but he's fine now, thank God. The last question was how to hollow something out, right? So I'll do that quick unless anyone else has something else. Show me hollowing a cylinder. How do you make cuts and keys for very complex shapes? How do you make? Looks amazing. Thank you, sir or ma'am. Fluffy Panda, you were amazing. Good job on this. Thank you. Interesting. How would you slice the wings? I'm currently having an angel modeled for a print. The wings look like yours on your model. Cool, thanks. Was a problem with mask painting 2, updated the software. Okay, so maybe I have to update again, I think, because they did release another version. I don't know if this is it though or not. I don't think it is, but I mean I think it is, but we'll have to check. Thank you for detailed answer. Appreciate it. Yeah, sure. Okay, so hollowing something out really quick, and then I'm gonna bounce and enjoy the rest of my weekend and get other work done. So I'll show you, yeah, very simple, rudimentary, basic, straightforward example. This is already a 3D object, right? Yeah. Okay, so any object in general, these are the basic rules you'd want to follow. You can do it in ZBrush. I recommend also checking out Mesh Mixer. Mesh Mixer is great. It's incredibly well developed, but I think also well developed and then abandoned piece of software, free from Autodesk. I'll open it up right now just so you can also see this. I teach a course. I've taught a course already for the prestigious Gnomon workshops. The Gnomon School of Visual Effects, Gnomon Workshops, has my course. It's called Mastering 3D Printing for the 3D Artist. And while it's utilizing a MakerBot Replicator 2 for the FDM side and a Form 2 SLA 3D printer, so there's the Form 3 now, and of course MakerBot's on. I don't know what version they're on now. I've kind of abandoned MakerBot. I still have my Maker Replicator 2, but I don't really use it. I don't really use FDM much anymore. I have an Ultimaker 3 Extended, which is great too, but they're both in disservice. They need to be repaired. Their extruders are clogged. That happens all the time. I got a blowtorch. I just got to, just burn all that crap out of there. But that being said, it covers both FDM and SLA. So Form 2 and Form 3 just makes life easier, but the preparation, orientation, and intelligent choosing of where you want your supports are the same. So I'm going to put that in chat, and also I'll give you guys the code for if you want to buy a Form 3, or I think a Form 3L, if I'm not mistaken, you will get some cash off if you use my code. So let me get that for you here. 1 second as I load up the info. So if you want to get a Form 3 and you want to save some money, you can save. I think they upgraded it to 500 now, if I'm not mistaken, because I believe they dropped it for a while during 2020 to 250, but now I believe it's back up to 500. You want to save between $250 and $500 off of a new Form 3 printer, please use the code in the chat. It'll save you a bunch of money, and it will get you a free liter of resin on top of it, and I'll get a little kickback as well. Full disclosure, I think it's just like I get kickback of the same value of a liter of resin. It's like $200, but it's just credit for their stuff. It's not even cash, which is great. I don't mind. I'm just saying. So I'm not like making money directly off of anybody, but it's a cool win-win for everybody, right? Because I use their stuff all the time. It's awesome. So there's that. The course, if you want to check out my Mastering 3D Printing course with the Known Workshop. They have very, very affordable subscription packages for folks to utilize. So yeah, so this is excellent if you want to really cover everything that I'm going to show you very briefly here. Please, and again, of course, watching the course, subscribing to them, and watching my course after, accumulates minutes watched equals, a few dollars of residual my way. Again, not much, but hey, every little bit helps. So if you guys are curious about 3D printing and want a truly comprehensive expert view and training on all things 3D printing for FDM or SLA, please watch the course. If you have any extra questions from that course, for some reason I haven't covered something, but I'm 99% sure it's still all relevant, feel free to always ask me here, and I'll be more than happy to help update you guys on whatever you have questions on. But lastly, hollowing out. So, all right, this is Mesh Mixer. I'll show you that after I show you ZBrush. So we got our cylinder here, very simple, and we want to hollow it out. Now there's a couple of different ways of doing this. I know thick skin is essentially a way of creating an internal hollowed out area, but I haven't really delved into it, so I'm going to experiment right now to try to show you. So this is external, and then you go negative, and I believe that's internal. Let's see if I'm correct. Or is it just external? Or is it just widening it? It's thick skin only. I forget. It's because I remember this is a new feature. It just came out recently with this version. Yeah, I think it's like just inflating basically, right? What is it doing? I'm confused actually because I haven't practiced this at all, so I feel bad. Sorry. I know I should be an expert in this, but I haven't used it, so it's an X for me. Anyway, okay, so ignoring thick skin for now. That might be a solution, but forgive me for not being an expert on that. A couple ways still we can do this. And I never do hollowing in ZBrush really. I mean, I do want, so the basic first way is very simple. You have an object, you duplicate it, all right? You take your duplicate. All right, now turn on transparency so we can see through. Very simple. Turn on your gizmo. If it's not centered, hit this, hit Alt, hold Alt, and hit this little pin, and you'll center it in the center of your volume of the object that you're working with. Then drag in the yellow square and create a smaller, scaled down version of it, right? You're creating your negative space right now, your internal cavity. And then we want to create drainage holes, right? Like I said, so you want to do another, in this case, this is very simple. Duplicate again. And once more, actually, we won't do the second duplication because we'll duplicate this one. So now we duplicated it again, simply to create drainage holes. So we're going to shrink this again, elongate it a little bit, shrink again. And in this case, we can kill two birds with one stone. If you wanted to have a hole going through the whole thing, just do this, and that. And so now that's going to be our Boolean. So this is all going to use live Boolean right now, all right? So this is our external skin. This is the amount of thickness we want. This is the internal cavity. And then this is going to be penetrating through the entire thing, just adding a hole, basically. So what you want to do is, this is your, and it also works in stack order, right? So if you have something below something else, that will allow you to remove from its above object, right? If you have something above that, it'll be added to it. I don't think it'll remove from anything that is below it. So in this case, that's our external skin. This is our internal cavity. So we select this second little half moon shape, which is removing, right, mass from another object. And then this will also be in that shape, or I mean, in that selection. Doesn't look any different yet because we haven't turned on live Boolean. You want to go over here and turn on live Boolean. And now if we turn off transparency, you can see we have a beautiful hollow cylinder. And to show you the internals, there's two ways you can do that too, which is nice. You can do, of course, selection, which didn't work. Why didn't that work? That's weird. It should be. Oh, duh. Is it not? That's why. Hello. Sorry. Not on the right subtool. There we go. All right. Boom. Turn on double. And yeah, it still doesn't. That's right. It doesn't like to show negatives unless it's already solid. So the other way of showing this is simple. Is add a cube and add it as a subtractive element. So to show you the hollowness, let me select a. Could be anything really. It doesn't have to be a cube. It could just add another cylinder. Could just duplicated. But we'll do this. Add the selective remove, enlarge it a little bit, drag it down. Okay, so now, just as a preview, just to show you the guts, the internals, I'm using this as a live Boolean preview. So now you can see here is the entire hollow cylinder. So, I mean, that's basically one way of hollowing anything out in ZBrush is duplicating your object, shrinking it down, right? Or you could also do a sort of de-inflate, or Dynamesh has another option I'll show you in a second. But these are all really, simple, straightforward ways of doing it. So here are Dynamesh. So to complete this, all you want to do is to simply come down to make live Boolean, right? So you click that button, and now it'll create a new subtool, which will be right here. And because I had that preview part cropping through here, it actually created it like that. But now you can see here's the clean geo. It only creates new edge loops or new edges and vertices only at the point of attachment or the point of intersection, right? Everything else is left untouched and as is. So it's a great way to preserve all your sculptural detail and not do what Dynamesh does, which is just, melt things together essentially and smooth things out a little bit unless you put it to a really high level of resolution. But even then, you're still, you're topologizing everything at once. So this is a great way to keep your topology clean and create a hollow object. So I'll delete this. And then just for reiteration, I'll see that now you can see as I have the your polyframe color on. I'll take this down, turn that off, and then again, I'll just do make live Boolean. And it's super fast because this is really light, not dense mesh. And so now if I do this, turn off that, now turn on double, now you can see as I just I selected this amount to show and hid everything else. And I can turn off wireframe. Now you can see in just colors how it works, right? So there's the hollow cylinder. So there's that. And then the other method would be doing Dynamesh. So if we have, so let's just go back to the original. So we just have, this is the only thing showing just your cylinder. We'd want one to be you still want to have a similar operation of like using an object as a negative Boolean extraction or what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, just a negative removal of mass. You'd want to use one object as that. So that's what we can do here. So we can go into Dynamesh. So go to Geometry, go down to Dynamesh, and we want to say that this object, we want this to be a one that will be removed from the object, right? So they need to also be occupying the same space. So what we can do here is have this showing, and we want to merge this one down. So we just go here to merge down, say yes, that's a permanent object, a permanent operation. And here you can see right now they actually have the same, looks like they have the same polygrouping, but we do auto group, boom, two different groups. Now we want to do that, and I think, where is this where it says sub, right? I think that's, we're going to do a sub union, but we also want to hollow it. It's been so long since I've done this. One sec. Create shell, so that's what we want to do. So actually, yeah, I think we want to wait on this as a sub, so we want to split it again. So now they're separate objects again. It doesn't matter that we're seeing both at the same time because they were only on the one that's green. Okay, so here what we want to do is create shell. All right, so we want to bring this up to a decent resolution. Resolution is directly correlated to your volume or mass of your object relative to the floor, right? The grid down here, the green grid you see. So if this object appears larger on the grid, the bigger it is, the higher resolution you'll be, the less amount of resolution you have to put here. Because if you put this up crazy high, this thing will be like 20, 30, 50 million polygons, and it's super excessive and useless for this type of operation, unless it was an incredibly detailed, intricate sculpture. And then you also want to do like sub projection here, you know. In this case, it's a relatively simple, large object on the floor, so we can keep this at like 300 probably, and it'll look fine. Turn off blur. Okay, so we just want to simply say Dynamesh. All right, it's been Dynameshed, so now you can see it's crazy dense already. Now we want to create shell. Creating shell requires a submesh insert, which will then be used as the opening for the shell. Please insert a submesh and try again. Okay, so that's where we will then do a merge down here with that thing, with the pole here. Okay, and now we're gonna do a mesh union sub. So I think if I just click this, is that the right way, or no? So there was a way to, I forget this actually, it's been so long. There's a way to is it polygrouping, I think? There's a way to delineate which one is negative and which one is positive in Dynamesh, and I think it's in polygroups. I think if you group it as, yeah, group as Dynamesh sub, that's it. So again, if I back out of here, all right, now if I do split hidden, okay, so then this thing, we say polygroup it as Dynamesh sub. All right, so white polygroup, that's always what it is. So the white polygroup is group as Dynamesh sub, and then we go here to merge down. Is it still, or do I have to? It's been so long since I've done this because this is such a not ideal way to do it, but it's just a way to do it, and I'd rather show you guys like all the ways. Okay, so now I think if we do sub, that should work. Yes. Okay. So now there's that, right? But we want to have the internal cavity too. We want that to be the drainage hole, not just a spool, right? So sorry. So again, we don't want that to be there yet because we want to create shell. So I think the shell would then be if I did what I did before, essentially, like Boolean operation. It's just duplicating and shrinking. So we're going to split that again. So we would duplicate this and shrink it down. Turn off transparency so we can see. So there it is. And they are now going to occupy the same space. So then we merge down. Bloop. Now they're together. As you can see, yeah. Maybe do auto group just in case, so that now they're two different polygroups. And then we do create shell. Submesh. Yeah, isn't that it? Oh, does it have to be? Oh, it has to be subtractive. Okay, duh. Okay, so not only do you have to have it. Hello. Oh, did it delete? Did I go back too far? I think I went back too far. Yeah, because it didn't. Yeah. All right. Sorry. All right. Same thing again. Duplicate. Shrink down. Come on, man. Work with me. We shrink it down, and we will merge down. Okay. Auto group. So we got the internal one. So we'll select this, then invert selection. Now we'll make that a subgroup. So we come over here to that polygroup, make it a Dynamesh sub, then recreate or bring back everything, unhide it, and now do sub. All right, and so then autosave, of course, right then. Okay. And I think I just did that wrong actually, because sub will just create. It'll create. Well, actually, So that's one way to create a shell, but then I actually think creating shell would be the other way of doing it. So I'm not sure what, I think the thickness is what makes the difference there. Gotta wait for this to finish. Sorry, one sec. Gotta wait for the autosave to finish. Damn, someone's drunk stumbling down the hallway. Oh, it's 5 p.m. somewhere. Okay. All right, create shell. Okay, I don't get what's going on here. Submesh insert, which will then be used operating shell. Please insert a submesh and try again. But that's what I did. Oh, unless they mean like an actual insert mesh. Is that what they're talking about? I don't know. That is so weird though. What is going on here? I thought that would be it, because clearly I just don't do it this way. As you know, there's a way to do it here to create shell. Let's see here. Internal thickness with any Dynamesh, but by first inserting in a negative mesh sub. Clicking the create shell button will then place a hole where the insert brush was. Okay, so insert brush, yeah, was used, and an internal thickness will be added. Okay, so you still have to use an insert mesh brush. So that's it. All right. Derp. Let's see this now. Let's see if we can do this right. Do insert mesh brush. Where are we going here? They are primitives, and there's a difference. One of these is opened and the other one's not. I think these are not, because the H I think stands for hollow, right? So pick this and draw it out. Let's make sure it is solid. Yes, it is. Okay. So now this, I believe, is what we can do as Dynamesh sub. Come back. And so now it's inserted just to this one. And I think this will work. Oh, okay. So derp again. Move this down. It's confusing. All right. Nope. Let's go back before this, because I think what we wanted to do is merge this down with the other one. And then what am I creating? I'm really not creating anything at this point other than just trying to hollow this out for somebody, just as a way of showing them the other method in Dynamesh. And so maybe this, that, and create shell. Is that working now? I think it's working. It's processing. Sorry, just the easiest way to do this is simply, there we go. Hey, what a headache. Oh, so there's a hole, the Dynamesh way. And so when it creates a, I remember seeing this from before, when it creates a make shell, see, we didn't increase thickness. I should have increased thickness a lot more. It does this very like stair-steppy internal cavity, which, I mean, who cares what the internal cavity really looks like? It's fine. But it won't be like smooth, and so that can't create like, you know, more rigid surface, which will then retain more resin in theory, because there's more surface to cling to that's rough instead of smooth. So, you know, it's obviously a clunky way of creating a drainage hole within ZBrush, but that's a method. But live boolean is so much easier. And then the other very easy way, of course, is if you go and download Autodesk's Mesh Mixer. There's so many SHs and anyway. So let me show you here. I'll just export out a cylinder. Woohoo! How original. To this, and we do a make poly mesh, and there's no grouping here, so we just say export. Just put it on the good old desktop. Cylinder, OBJ, yes, fine. It should all be manifold. Import. Go to desktop. Demodify. There's our cylinder. Boom. Why is it red? Is it because I didn't uncheck group? Because sometimes when you say group, when you don't uncheck group here on export, it exports everything out unfaceted. So every single polygon is separate, not welded together, which is not good. Let's try this again. I think that's what happens. Save, yes, replace. Back to Mesh Mixer. File, import, replace. Choose the cylinder again. Open. Huh. No, it's red anyway. Odd. Not sure why it's red. Anyhow, so there's a couple things you can do here. Analysis. You always want to check. Make sure there's no holes. Often when you have a really detailed mesh and it's gone through Dynamesh and Boolean and other things, you'll have little tiny areas that some weird error will happen, and there's like either a flipped normal or a deleted polygon or a floating polygon or some weird, like 2 or 3 polygons are sharing the same vertice and they shouldn't, or whatever, some weird kerfuffle. This will clean it up, but this doesn't seem to have any issues, right? So you'd see these little dots pointing out, like a long line in a sphere kind of pointing out, like here's a problem. But there's no problems here. Okay, so we'll go to edit. All right, and then we'll go to hollow. Calculate distances. I think it might be red because it's too small. Maybe not. I don't know. Let me turn off that floor because that floor is annoying. I think it might be that. I think that might be the case though. This might be red because it's way too small. Yeah, that's why it's red. Okay, and that's why it's not showing hollow correctly. Okay, so, and I never scale things in here, actually. That's the other funny thing. Where do we go to units again? This is such another... Because I usually create everything and align units in ZBrush. So another way you can do that, an easy way to fix this too, is I'll show you that. Scale master. You want to make sure, like say, slider to subtool size, right? Leave it on millimeters because everything likes to operate in millimeters. Keep things relative, so lock sliders to relative. So let's bring this up to like, I don't know, 300 millimeters. All right. Actually, let's bring it up more to like, say, 1200 millimeters. All right. Resize subtool, all, just selected. So, all right. Resize subtool based on selected mesh dimensions. Will XYZ value larger than 100? Will distort selected image continue? Yeah, sure, whatever. It's not a big deal, no problem. It's just telling us that, but it's irrelevant really. Okay, so now it's massive. It's maybe a little too big. Let's shrink it down a little bit. Okay, so still big, but not crazy big. All right, now do this one more time. Export, same name, replace, yes. Boom, come back to Mesh Mixer. Do the same thing here. All right, import, replace, same name, open. Okay, much bigger, yet still red for some reason. And there I have that volume of the MakerBot 2, which you don't need. It's irrelevant. How do we show grid? Show printer bed. There we go. Get rid of that. Okay, anyway, now hollow, edit. Hollow. There we go. So much cleaner, clearer. You can see the internal, the external skin is ghosted. The internal is now showing you the cavity that you're going to create. And here are all your parameters over here, which are really easy and friendly to use. Offset distance, which is the thickness, the wall thickness that you're going to create here. 2 millimeters is great. I think 2 millimeters usually is actually a decently thick wall. You could go thicker, of course, if you want more strength for certain parts overall, or the whole piece to have a thicker wall, which you can always bring this back into ZBrush and edit later. But here's someone asking, where are the drainage holes? Well, this allows you to do that too. So let's leave that 2 millimeters is fine. Solid accuracy, yeah, you can push it up a little bit, but in this case, obviously, it's not going to make a difference. Mesh density, again, this case won't make a difference. For more detailed meshes, you probably want to increase your mesh density a bit. Holes per hollow. So this is one hollow. So how many holes do we want in this? Let's say 2. So 2 is fine. Sometimes, and they might do it here, you'll say 2 holes, and it'll only give you 1. It's always one less than what it is sometimes. Don't know, ask me. It's probably a bug. I don't know why it does that. Your hole radius, self-explanatory. How large of a hole do you want? Again, 1.5 millimeters is okay. I like to usually go for a little bit larger, maybe 2. Hole taper, that's simply what it says again. How you want the hole to taper, you know, to get wider or smaller at a certain one end. Don't need that. So, okay, we see generate holes. So now generating holes just means it places your positionable holes. So we want one on this end, and we want one, sure, down here. Why not? Okay, so now those are our, you know, proposed drainage holes, but nothing has been recalculated yet. So now that's all done. You say update hollow. It's going to calculate and crush the numbers. And it's meshing. It's collapsing. Checking for errors. And it looks like nothing's there. Then we tap. And hey, look at that. There it is. Weird thing is, it did not take the holes. So let's try that again. Generate holes. Don't know why it didn't take them. A little bizarre. Okay. And, oh, sorry. Updated hollow updated all these parameters. Derp. Doesn't actually do the holes until you say accept. Now, sorry, forgot that part. And now, it's working. There we go. See, there we go. All right. Done. Beautiful. It's not letting me rotate. Oh, might crash. I don't know why it's having a problem with this cylinder because it's really basic, but awesome. We just had a whole comedy of errors here, kind of. But anyway, so those are options for hollowing something out. There we go. Wow, what is that? That should not happen. Don't ask me why that's there. That is so weird. I've never seen that happen before, ever, with anything I've worked on. Maybe because it's in between the plane. I don't know. That is weird. Disregard this. Do everything I said and followed, and it'll work out. Trust me. But this was clearly not the best example of how it should go. Embarrassing. Anyway, so hopefully this gave somebody a laugh and also educated somebody on how to do all this. So anyway, trust me, Mesh Mixer is awesome. None of those errors happened on my course. But I'm sorry that it messed up a little bit. But anyway, you got some free information there, and some free education, and we're well over time. God, now it's already 40 minutes over. So anyway, yeah. Okay, guys and gals, take care. Have a great weekend for what's left of it for you on my side of the planet, and I'll see you guys next week, Tuesday. All right. Take care. Peace out. Bye-bye.